Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of MSDynamicsWorld.com's Spring 2015 CRM webcast series. I'm Jason Gumpert, and we're joined today by Scott Sewell of Hitachi Solutions. Scott is a Microsoft MVP for Dynamics CRM. He's also a returning speaker for us. We are really glad to have him back. Scott ran a very well-received session on the XRM Toolbox a few months ago, and he is back to talk about even more tools in the XRM Toolbox today. So we invite you to add your feedback and ask questions today during Scott's presentation. You can use the Q&A block or the chat that you'll see in the webcast session off to the right side of the window. Scott will be making some time for questions at the end, I think, but enter your comments and questions anytime. So without further delay, to start the webcast off, please allow me to welcome Scott Sewell and give him control.
Very good. Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Just do an audio check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Very good. Well, great. Well, I appreciate the chance to present, and let me go ahead and share my screen, get my screen started sharing. Monitor 2, and we'll walk through from this point. This is a kind of a continuation of the utility belt presentation I did a few months ago, and the first half of this presentation is on YouTube. I think Jason, you shared it out there on YouTube, so if it's available there, I think if you just search for Superhero Utility and XRM Toolkit, the XRM Toolbox, you can find it out there, and so there's available, and in that presentation we covered some of the very basic tools and did a kind of high-level flyby of some of the more advanced tools. Well, in the time since that presentation was done, a couple of things have happened with the XRM Toolkit, and we can now look at some. He's moved it to a new location. So there's a new place to get the latest copy from, and there's a really nice add-on that another person in the marketplace, Jonas, has released that I want to spend a little bit of extra time on to demonstrate that piece. So I don't really have a lot of slides in place. I do have one slide. Let me show you where to find the latest copy of the Toolbox. And if you'll go, it was previously stored up at CodePlex, but it's now at this location, the XrmToolbox.com. So if I go to XRM Toolbox, I'm just going to copy that and drop it down, and we can open up, open up a browser and just paste that in. There's now a page just the XRM Toolbox, and you can jump over and see it on GitHub. That's where the actual source file and the compiled version of the application is stored now. And again, you can just download it from here, and we'll go through that process. Once you've downloaded it, as new versions are released, in fact, there was a version that was released this morning. As new versions are released, the application will alert you and let you know that you can download a fresh copy. Downloading the fresh copy, it doesn't actually install the fresh copy for you. We'll walk through that process of how you install it and some gotchas. We talked about this a little bit last time, but I think it's worth kind of revisiting that. So, just before launching in, we'll talk a little bit about installing the new toolkit. Talk about the sitemap editor, some privileges, the roles, the bulk form updater, the field level security tool that's been added. It's a brand new tool, and spend pretty much the bulk of our time on the Fetch XML Builder. It's a new utility, terrific for people who build SSRS reports using Fetch XML. So if you're using CRM Online, or want to make some interesting modifications to the views, and we'll talk about those as possibilities. Those are the ones we'll focus on. The previous session, we actually focused more on things like the Web Resources Manager, the Iconator, View Layout Replicator, some of the more commonly used ones. But we can touch those if we have any questions. This time I did actually leave a little bit more room for questions at the end, so I'll be happy to to address those. And Jason, just feel free to, if anybody has questions, just chat them to Jason, and feel free to interrupt me on this. This will be just a working session together, and we'll get through this. Very good. So without further preliminaries, let's talk about how you actually get this. So if you go out to, let me backtrack and go to XrmToolbox.com, and one thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't point out ahead of time, this is a free tool. It is a tool that a gentleman in France, he's based out of Paris. He wrote it, he delivered it, he's provided it to the community. There's no charge for using this. The source code is all available, and it is the XRM Toolbox is a wrapper of utilities. The XRM Toolbox is like this bundle, and the XRM Toolbox actually handles getting connection between your machine and the CRM server. It talks to CRM using the API, and then within the toolbox, there's a list of utilities that do different things that are fairly useful. A lot of them are incredibly useful, actually, I should say. A lot of them are incredibly useful in terms of managing and configuring CRM. One thing I really want to point out and emphasize, and I can't emphasize this enough, the tools all work within the API and the SDK. So there are no hacks. I've seen some utilities that are out there that effectively try to skirt the API and maybe make changes directly to the database. That's forbidden from the, it's completely unsupported. The XRM Toolbox does none of that. It always connects and speaks to the API through the approved official channels. There's no hackiness to it. It's just maybe some alternate ways. Some of the SDK, some of the utilities within CRM, there are ways to do it from the front end, but maybe they're not as efficient if you need to try to do a bunch of them at the same time. This actually just kind of helps you, sort of bundle up some faster ways to do things and get those together. Again, it is talking to the API, so it's clean, and it will talk to both on-premise, IFD, or CRM Online, and all three of those it works fine against, since it is using the official the application. So that's cool there. Just wanted to kind of throw that out and put a clarity around that before we started. The XRM Toolbox, if we start with here, you can actually just click on the download button and click download and download a copy of the zip file. At that point, you're actually it's going out to GitHub and going to the releases area and grabbing the latest compiled version of the XRM Toolbox. And what we'll do is I'm going to save this file. Click Save, and it drops it down into my download folder. So I'll go to my download folder here, and I'm going to copy this download. I'm just going to, open the folder. So now I'm in my folder. That's just my download list from Firefox. Once I see it down in my download folder, you see that I've got the zip file. Before I do anything else, this is kind of an every time you do this or every time you update, you always want to follow this one step. You right-click on the zip file and choose Properties. Once you click Properties, there is the security area saying this came from another computer and it might be blocked. What you'll want to do is click Unblock and Apply. When you do that, let me go back into it. When you've done that, that lets you see that tells Windows that yes, I intentionally downloaded this file. I know where it came from. It has executable code inside of it. I'm ready to use that. So that's just a Windows security measure. You want to download and extract it there. So once I've downloaded the file, that's just a zip file. I'm going to move it up to my desktop because that's really where I normally keep this place. I'm going to keep it up on my desktop, and you'll see I've already got a zip file. A folder called XRM Toolbox. I'm I've been using this for a long time, and this is just the easiest way for me is because I use it every day. I leave it on my desktop, and I get my latest zip file, right-click, extract all, let it unzip to the XrmToolbox, hit extract, just replace the files with the latest versions, and I'm done. That process is just, you'll do that whenever Tanguy releases a new version. And again, in the last few days, he's released updates to do a couple things. One is there's I believe there's just 2 new data centers that have been added to CRM. I think there's one in Japan and possibly one in Southeast Asia, or in Australia. Not sure if that's right or not. I'm pretty sure there's a new Japanese and a new 2 new ones. But he's released those because they're now, so that the connection string will work with those. As well as he found a bug, and so he released a patch that updated the bug, took care of the bug fix. So that's an ongoing process that you'll do as they release new tools. Within the XRM Toolbox, the zip file, I'm going to just get rid of the zip file now that I've downloaded it. What did I just delete? Oh, store. I deleted the wrong thing. Delete that. All right. So within the folder, if I open this up, I can see a list of DLLs, and each one of these represents, for the most part, these represent a different utility within the toolbox. Also within that, there are a couple of fields. Let me scroll up and find them here. There's a couple of files that are the settings for the toolbox. And we'll look at what those do. They actually contain the configurations to which environment you've already set this up to connect with, as well as some simple configuration to the front end that you might be interested in. So let me just go ahead and open up the toolbox. You'll notice I've got it located. I've got a shortcut on my desktop because I just use this constantly. There's a couple of settings along the top. They'll point out, we mentioned these last time, but we'll point those out real quickly. There's a couple of settings. By default, it shows the large outline, the large icons. The default setting looks like this, but it's a little bit big for me, so I changed it to the small icons. And then there's also the most recently used tools list. You click that, and whatever the tools that you use most often, those sort up to the top of the list. Like for me, I'm using the Web Resources Manager and the Document Generator and the Sitemap. Those are the ones I use most often. And then it scrolls down, and you get into some that you rarely use, or in these cases, 2 that I haven't used, or 3 that I haven't used before. So just some options in terms of making it easy to access. Let's take a look at some of the very basic utilities, and some of these we touched on briefly in the last presentation, but I'll sort of recap them, and then we'll dive into some more advanced utilities along the way. One of the utilities that's very common and easy to deal with is the sitemap editor. If I click on that, you'll notice the first thing it asks me is, do I want to connect to an organization first? And obviously, if I haven't connected to an organization, the sitemap editor can't do anything. So I'd say that, yes, I do want to connect to an organization. I have it set up to connect to my local environment already, but let's say that I've actually got 2 environments locally that I want to connect to, and I don't have a linkage already for the second one. So I'll click New Connection, and we'll talk about how these connection strings get set up. The connection I want to create is for Contoso production. And this one is a local environment, so I'll just go to HTTP CRM, black CRM 411. That's the server name that I'm on. I'll use Windows Integrated Authentication, and I'll just get organizations. If I do this, I now get a list of the organizations that are on this machine. So I'll choose Contoso Prod as being my target organization, click OK, and now I'm connected to the Contoso Prod. What happens if you want to connect to a different type? And then that's an online, an on-premise environment. What if I wanted to create a connection to an Office 365 or a CRM Online version? I could just call this Spring, and I would just say use Office 365. Again, these are the server, depending on where your environment is set up, if you're on CRM Online, depending on which geography you're in, you'll choose the corresponding one for this. North America is going to be CRM, and honestly, I've forgotten which ones of these relate to different different environments. I think I heard 9 was the new Japanese one, but anyway, the different environments, you'll know that from your own environment if you're not connecting to a North American environment. So I'll go to CRM, and I'll put in my username, which is type in my password. And when I do that, I can choose it to get orgs. It will reach out to CRM Online. Well, I may have mistyped the password. I should use, sorry, Office 365 is what I should have chosen. Let me try it again. There it is. So now I'm connected to my CRM Online environment, and I have two different organizations in my online environment, so I can choose between which one I want to connect to. If I choose this one, I can just click OK. But one of the things that I do suggest is if you're on a machine that you control, you can tell it to save the password in the configuration file. It does store it as an encrypted file, but then again, if anybody opens this application as they will be able to connect to that environment as you. So you want to make sure that this is an environment where you have control over the file. They won't be able to read the password, but they would be able to connect to CRM as you, or as whatever username you connect it with. So just be aware of that. So I'll say I'm going to store that and click OK and say I want to connect to it. And sure enough, it will create the connection proxy, and it will work its way through the process, testing it. And once it's down here at the bottom, we'll see a note once it finishes connecting that testing the connection. There it is. So I can say that I want to reset this one. And now I am connected to an organization using this, this particular connection string. The other organizations, and once we've done that, we can see them listed here. Just a very convenient way of keeping track of it. If you're a consultant like I am, you probably will wind up having connections to several customers' environments that you're working on, and it's very easy to manage those. If you're an on-premise customer, you might have just connections to your local production and development environments. Very easy to keep track of those. Those are actually stored in the background in this file. Let me refresh that. And if I go into the Toolbox settings, sorry, the wrong one. Inside the MS CRM Tools 2011 file, I will open that up, and you can see that there's a connection. There's two different connections. One is Active Directory, one's Online Federation. It's got my username, and it's got the encrypted version of my password stored locally. If I needed to, I could actually copy this and create a second environment for it, but it'd be pretty cool that you've got access to that, and you can see what's going on with those. I do that quite a bit. So anyway, the settings one, just all that shows you is the different list of items in the toolbox, and what are the usage counts on those. So that's for that sorting of the tools that are available. So a couple things. So let's take a look, and let me switch back and point. I don't want to mess with this environment. That's a beta environment. I want to connect to my local environment. It'll be a little quicker too. So I'll connect over to this, and load the sitemap. Once I've loaded the sitemap, you can see this is the sitemap editor, and I can see the items within it and make my changes to that. But this piece is, I think we've covered this before, but again, it's very straightforward. If I go to my site, let's say that I want to remove the leads and I want to move contacts and opportunities up, or excuse me, contacts ahead of accounts because I'm a different type of customer. So if I do that, I can choose this and say in my customers, I want to move my contacts. I'll just move them up in the list, and I can right-click and disable leads because I'm not using leads in this environment, and I'll move the accounts up one. And that, once I update the sitemap with those changes, and then refresh CRM, we'll see that new sitemap. Should be able to go here, and sure enough, my contacts show up first, then accounts, then opportunities. Just an easy way. I mean, as far as the user experience is concerned, it's really nice to be able to move up the things that are useful to a user to the first page that they go to, rather than having them forcing them to scroll all the way across here to find the things that they're most often useful. Let's see. I've got a question. Many of the customers are using CRM on-premise, and I use RDP to work on their systems. Can the toolkit connect using RDP? If you are using RDP to connect to it and not IFD, so I mean, I assume that by RDP, you're saying you RDP into a machine that's on their network and connect and interact that way. If you're doing it from there, then you would just install, you would drop a copy of the XRM Toolbox on that desktop that you work from when you RDP in. If you are RDPing in like an app server, sort of like some of the some of the virtualized desktops where you just connect in and you have access to the app that's virtualized temporarily, and you don't really have access to a true desktop there. You might have a chance of, you might run into problems with actually being able to connect, but that's helpful. Let me disable my, ignore that. And
Scott, while you're doing that, I just wanted to call your attention to something. We now have Tanguy on the line as a panelist. He's actually not on audio, I don't believe. Okay. But he is going to be answering some questions through the Q&A panel just by text. I think he's already answered one or two there. So be on the lookout for that, folks. And if you do ask a question through the Q&A.
Terrific.
Also, sorry, there was I wanted to mention. So Tanguy, welcome, even if you're not able to get on the audio yet. Yep. Okay. No, I think that's it. So carry on.
Great. So just that I mentioned Tanguy's name early on, but Tanguy is the man he's based out of Paris, and he's the developer of the whole toolkit. He put this together. A couple of people have added additional utilities, but Tanguy's the man in terms of building this and releasing it and managing it over time. And it's just tremendous asset to the community that he's released this and made it available for everyone to use. So if you get a chance, I know I have, go to the web page, and there is a donate site. I think there's a donate on here. Yeah, you can actually donate in dollars, euros, or pounds. But that's just as a way of saying, buy him some beer money. Well, he's in France, so I guess it's wine money. So, but yeah, he's a great guy, and this thing is invaluable for configuring. So we've already talked about basic configuration, how to get connected, how to use one of the simpler tools. I want to dive into a couple of new tools that Tanguy's released recently. And that's let me close this one. One of the more recently added tools is a pretty cool one. It's the field level security bulk updater. Some environments I've worked on have a tremendous amount of field level security. Some environments have none. It just depends on what the organization's name is, the organization's type is, or kind of their personality. But the field level security bulk updater allows you to go out and load the fields that are listed as having field level security on them, and you can change the security privileges, update them depending on what you need to do in bulk. It's a very fast way of modifying a lot of fields if you have to deal with a lot of items in an environment. I think Tanguy was mentioning when he was building this, he had an environment that had several hundred items, several hundred fields that needed adjustment. And this tool allowed him, when I pulled up my test environment, I only have a couple of fields on there, but he had those fields, he had hundreds of fields he had to modify, and this allowed him to modify those quickly. It's really one of those things that has been great about the tool is, as Tanguy's building, developing environments or working in environments, hits at a bump where he's having to go through the front end of the application and work through and do something very repetitive or very large in bulk, ultimately turns into an idea for a new utility. Other new utility ideas came out from suggestions from the community. I get to claim credit on one or two of them, so it's really nice that he's using that. It's just because it's an everyday tool for him. Another tool that's very useful I like is this privileges discovery tool. I had a situation where I implemented a new utility or a new entity into an environment, and it was just a custom entity, and I needed to quickly find out which security roles had access or which security roles needed access to that new entity. What you can do, and I wanted to make sure that only certain roles could delete that entity in BASIC. But let me do a quick look at an example of this, and let's say that I'm going to work off of cases. So an incident, I just type in incident and it comes up with a case list. And let's say that I'm interested in who has any privilege to delete a case. I can choose the case, choose delete, and display the roles that match that. And if I look at that on the right-hand side, I can now see that the CEO, the CSR manager, schedule manager, scheduler, and then the admin roles can delete cases. But your typical customer service rep or salesperson would not have privilege to see that, would not have privilege to delete that case. You can also look and say, who has rights to, let me remove that one, to delete from any case in the system. And that actually changes it to just the system administrator and the CEO or the admin. Those are the only two roles that have permissions to delete any case in the organization. So this one would, some of the other roles would have permissions less than, the big green dot, but that's a way to find it. So it's cool utility, very useful. If I wanted to go out and actually go the different perspective and say, I want to make sure that, let me change this to read. I'm going to add that and remove that one. And let's say that I have some, I don't remember if I have any roles that don't have that. Let me check real quick to see if I have any roles that don't have privileges to that. Yeah, well, that's not really a good one. So let me change it. Let me change to a different entity. Read. what I want to do is read. Yeah, so I don't have that one. Looking for, well, sorry, sometimes I can't click and talk at the same time. All right. Those have organization. Let me change that. One way. Yeah. All right. So what we'll do is we're going to actually go out and, in this case, on the right-hand side, I'm finding that the support users have read at the user depth level for opportunities. But in fact, I really, and for whatever reason, I want to make sure that everybody in the organization has the full privilege to see all the opportunities in the system, just hypothetically. I can actually use a different tool in the toolbox, which is the role updater, very similar to the privileges discovery, and choose the role updater and say, you know what, I want to update the salesperson to what was the one we need to update? Support user. Support user and scheduler. All right, schedule manager, salesperson. Hit next, and I'm not sure whether it's got a stray dialogue here, but I can choose opportunity, and I want to grant read at the business unit level. Hit next, and so let me restart that. Role updater. Okay, now I'm better off. Support user, scheduler, that. Hit next, and I want to go to opportunity and choose read and give it organization level, and then hit next. And you'll see that it goes through and it applies the update. And I think depending on what you apply, maybe throws an error sometimes. But this one's been invaluable if I'm trying to roll out a new entity and make it available to all the different roles that may be using it. You can apply read privileges, write privilege, delete, all those utilities through there. So that one's been invaluable. The last one within that sort of that band is the user role manager, and these three kind of work together. And let's say that if I had in this environment I only have one user, so that user has pretty much everything, but I can choose a role, and on the user on the right-hand side. And for that, I can say, I want to add the selected roles to the selected team. And basically, I can go out and, if I had a list of users that were everybody who had a job title of support or had a view that had everybody who was a support user, I can apply the same role to all those users very quickly. The other thing I can do is I can actually select a role and then remove the role from the users who I've selected. This actually comes in handy if you're moving users from one business unit to another. When you move them from one business unit to another, they lose all their roles during that move. When you get them over on the other side, you can have your view set up, say, these users get these roles, these users get these roles, and you can reapply it very quickly. It's just a very useful utility that lets you edit users in bulk. Again, same thing you could do through the front end of the system. You can actually jump in and let's say Tangi replied what the error I hit was, but the support user role is not updatable. But thanks, Tangi. This utility is very useful for, especially if you're getting into hundreds of users. And if you get into that level of that size of an organization, you know, even dozens of users to hundreds of users, even thousands of users, doing something where you go into each of the roles and click, 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 or you try to select a large group of people and apply a role to them, very time-consuming that can get very old very quickly. I want to shift gears a little bit and change to a different utility. This is actually a utility. The XRM Toolbox was written as a platform. So the utility there's documentation on how people can write utilities that will plug into the XRM Toolbox, and then they can be downloaded separately and dropped into the folder. And suddenly now there's a new extension for it. One of the most exciting ones has been released recently is the Fetch XML Builder. And again, it's this idea that Tanguy built this framework that handles all the connectivity, sets up the environments, and then puts a space where you can drop in this utility, and somebody's taken advantage of that and has built a really nice utility. So I want to show what that looks like. If I go back to the XRM Toolbox, and he's actually created a nice little shortcut on it for FXB, for Fetch XML Builder. And Jonas sorry, Jonas, if I get this wrong, but I think you're Sweden, and from Centeros, has really built this utility that's just fantastic. It's an add-in to it. If you download the XRM Toolbox, this is not included. All you have to do is drop this down separately, and you become and it adds it to the utility. So let me go ahead and bring this one into the utility. All I have to do is click on Download FXB, and I'm going to save that file as well. Go to my download folder, and now I've got this Fetch XML Builder here, and I'm going to do the same thing here: Properties, unblock it, apply it, hit OK. And in my directory, if I open this up, it gives me 2 DLLs. I'll grab those, copy it, go to my desktop, go into my XRM Toolbox folder, and just paste them here and replace the ones I have. Once I've done that, and now once I can reopen the XRM Toolbox, there's this, scroll down a little ways, and you can see now there's this XRM Fetch XML Builder. Really a nice utility that is fairly new. And let me connect to an environment here. I'm going to connect to my local Contoso environment. Oh. My double click on this mouse is a little wonky. So sometimes I get multiple clicks at the same time. I'm going to create a new one, and this allows me to build out the fetch for a query. Some people, you can open up Notepad and build your fetch very easily that way, but this is a really nice way to do it. And I can either start with this and say I want to work off of the entity that I want to work off of is the account, and then I want to add the attributes, and I can choose the attributes that I want. I want the name, the account number, the account ID, and the city and state. So just choose those items and expand that out. And so I can see that, and then I can just hit execute, and I'll see this JSON results. But in the most recent version, he's added a nice feature where I change the output from, instead of return as JSON, I want to return the results in a grid. So I choose options, return as grid. I can execute this, and I see the query executed, and I get a result set back. So I can make sure that my Fetch XML works the way I want. This is really great. I was using this last evening, working on a report for our internal CRM, and needed to write the report in Fetch because it's an online environment. And I was trying to build a query and fool with it, and ultimately this was a lifesaver in terms of being able to build it, tweak it, modify it, test it, and then ultimately to add it to my report. Once I've got that in place, I can add conditions to it. So I'll add a filter, and within the filter, we'll see the filter is and I want the filter to include a condition says that where I want the state code equal to active. Right. And once I've done that, I can again hit fetch. You can also take this once you've built out the query similar to what you want. You execute it, test it, and that's good. Then you can choose the Edit XML button in the ribbon. Click Edit XML, and I'm going to move this over to the side here. And in real time, it is taking care of formatting and updating your XML that you can then copy that and paste it into a report. And so, if I added another condition where the right-click and choose Add a Condition, and in here I want to say where the let's see, account number. I don't know if account number contains data, not null. And then if I go back to Edit XML, you'll see that that condition is now added in my XML. So that's one way of approaching it. Let me take a practical example of something I did the other day on an environment that was pretty cool to actually be able to implement. This is something that's been a challenge in CRM for a very long time. In an environment where you have users, or you've got accounts and then possibly related to associated users, or excuse me, accounts and contacts, or accounts and opportunities. Maybe you want to find, I want to see accounts that have no contacts associated with them. In CRM, if I tried to do an advanced find on that, there's really not a clean way of doing that that says, it was actually not any way at all using advanced find to say, show me accounts that have no associated contacts. There's just nothing about the way you build your query that allows you to do that. However, but in this case, we wanted a view that said, show me all the accounts that have no contacts associated with them. So what we did is we started with the system view, and I created a new system view. And the accounts without contacts, and click OK. And within that, I can say, my criteria is, I'll just start with, I really can't build a criteria that says, show me an account that has no contacts. So what I've done is I can say, I want to add account name, and let's see, I want to add, sorry, not the criteria, I want to view column, that's what I want to add. Account number and city and state, right? So there's my view, and I'll just add a simple filter of where the status code or state code is equal to active. Good. Okay. And refresh my screen. And let me publish those. So I'm building up to there's a big finish here. So I'll just publish this. Publish. And there's my view should be there. Did I not save it? I may have clicked close without saving it. And try again. So accounts without contacts. That's what happens when you're trying to talk and click at the same time. So add columns, add my account number, city, and state. And add a filter criteria of the account state code or status listed here is equal to active. And I'm going to save it. Save and close. And refresh it again. There it is. Now I've got the view here that I want to work off of. So I've got a view that is just named what I want, but the criteria is one that I can't actually build into the view using the UI. However, the nice thing is CRM under the covers, Fetch XML has been enhanced in several ways in the past few iterations. That type of query, the show me all the accounts that have no associated contacts, is now a supported query. It's just that there's no way to build it in the front end of the application. So we've got that out there, and I'm going to open up the Fetch XML Builder again and hit cancel on that. And instead of creating a query from scratch like I was just doing, I can choose Open a View, and it will go out to CRM and ask what are the entities that I want to look at. And I'll choose, I want to look at the account entity, and I can choose accounts without contacts. That's the query, that's the view that I just created just a second ago. But I need to add to it a new attribute, a new criteria that allows me to look for accounts that have no related contacts. And so I can do that by, in my entity over here, I'm going to add a new link to that, new link entity, and I'm going to base it off of, and this is a suggestion for Jonas to sort this, but let me find it. Contact, there it is. Contact parent customer ID. So that's my join name, and I'm going to make that an outer join, and I'm going to name it, I'll alias it as contact. So once I've got that contact in place, I've got a link there, and I'm going to filter it to yeah, so I'm going to change my link, filter that to add a filter, and this is an and filter, and under that I'm going to add a condition where the contact ID is not null. Okay, so now this is giving me a condition, this is giving me a query that says, show me all the contacts and optionally the ones that have, excuse me, all the accounts and optionally the ones that have related contacts. Well, I want to add another filter to this, which is the magic bullet here. And in this filter, I want to say add a new condition where the entity is my contact and the contact ID is null. And if I did everything right, I should now see this is a way of saying join up against all the accounts, find all the contacts that have related contacts, and then filter it down to just the accounts that don't have contacts. Let me make sure I've added my outer join, and if I execute the fetch, yeah, sure enough, I come back with one record, which is, in my environment, I have one account that has no contacts. Once I've done that, I mean, you see the the fetch that's associated with it. And some of you may be comfortable with writing that from scratch. For me, it was a lot easier to click through it and structure it that way. I know that I don't have any spelling errors or anything like that, so it's nice to do it that way. Once I've got that in place, I can then save it. I can either save it as a file, so maybe I'm saving it as a file so I can work on a report with it, or I can publish it back to the view that I brought it from. So I can save it as a view, and I'll update the view in CRM. Click OK. Publishes there. Now, if I go back into CRM and go to my, let me open up. See, I think I got my editor up here. Close that. Leave this page, and go to my accounts. I just need to refresh it to let it know to pick up the change. Yeah. So now my query actually returns all the accounts that have no context. Same thing would be true as maybe you're looking for accounts with no opportunities, or opportunities with no emails in the last 30 days. Contacts that have not been emailed, have had no marketing exposure in the last 60 days. Those are the types of queries that are very commonly needed, but there's no nice way to do it from the front end of CRM. This way you can do it. You're creating a query, you're publishing it up. The downside would be, if there is a downside, I don't really think of it as a downside, but if you needed to modify that view, you would not be able to, because that's a view that there's not a GUI interface for it. If I tried to modify it here, I went back through here and tried to modify the filter, it's not going to let me modify it because it's a filter that can't be represented through the UI. You would need to go back out and modify it using the Fetch XML Builder tool. Just incredibly useful along that lines. Last step of this, I mean, I think this is this one is fantastic, and it's incredibly useful. And again, another free utility available to the whole community. Make sure you go onto the site, rate the utilities, let the creators know how valuable this is to you. Put a donation in the tip jar. Those kind of things make them, and just let them know how valuable it is to us as a community. I certainly do, and I would encourage you to do the same. You can use the Fetch XML tool, the Fetch XML tester that was already built into the toolbox to test the query, which works fine, but I think the Fetch XML Builder far exceeds the utility there. Joan, are there questions? I haven't been watching the chat window lately, but do you want to bring up, Jason? Do you have any questions that have come up?
Yeah, there have been some questions coming up, and Tanguy has been answering many of them just via text responses. So for the folks who are in the session, you've probably seen those coming by, but Scott, just to maybe update you a bit, there have been some questions on some trickier things like circumventing issues around layers of a solution that have to be perhaps rolled back, which Tanguy responded was a scenario. There's actually been some questions about skinning CRM, about putting new look and feel on the UI, and Tanguy responded there that there may be some things coming down the road, but nothing official and nothing he can comment on.
I think that's a very safe way of answering that. It's
anything's possible, right?
Yeah. Hey, what Convergence is next week. A lot of things get introduced at Convergence, so I definitely encourage you to, if you're not attending Convergence, to participate in the virtual Convergence and listen to some of the keynotes that are coming out. So that would be a very nice. I agree, that would be a very nice enhancement. So let's keep our ears open.
For sure. Robert asks, can you show the window again with the accounts without contacts?
Certainly. Let me open this back up. So looking for this query, is that what the question was, I assume?
Either that or perhaps the result. Oh, he said perfect. Yep, that's what he was looking for.
Okay, let me do the same thing here. Let me pull it back up. This is a cleaner version of it. Yeah, that's a little simpler one to read. I'll screenshot that one.
All right, yeah, I'd remind anyone else as we get near the top of the hour here that please, if you could enter your questions into the Q&A block. I know Scott and Tanguy would be happy to answer as many more as you have.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have any more, or while we have a bit of a lull here, let me just mention there will be a quick survey that will pop up as you leave today's session. We'd really appreciate your input. It should only take 15 or 30 seconds to fill that out, and it really helps us and helps our speakers sort of know how we did today.
Let's see. I heard all the unmanaged components. Okay, I'm just zooming back there, and Tanguy's actually answered most everything there. Okay, good. Well, terrific. I just encourage you to grab it, grab the tool, and also look at the previous session if you have questions about some of the other utilities. I actually covered some of the ones that I use most often. I covered in the first session, and this is a nice add-on to that. But hopefully that's been helpful, and I encourage you to use it and tip Tanguy and Jonas and anyone else who's and make sure you rate the tools and let them know how useful they are to the community. It's terrific stuff. Yeah, thanks for the feedback today, and to the folks saying thanks to Tanguy and Scott. Certainly see that. We have recorded today's session. We'll be making it available on demand through our YouTube channel, and we'll be hosting it on msdynamicsworld.com as well. So we'll send an email update when that is available. So be on the lookout for that too. Let me see if there are any other questions. So there is one more question here about whether or not there's a tool for bulk update for teams and business units. I think there's Tanguy is asking. Yeah. But I don't know, Scott, do you have anything to add on that one? I don't. I think there's I did for bulk updating users and updating teams for users. In that case, I haven't used I don't think there's a tool in the toolkit that uses it, but I've used the Kingsway Soft Adapter with SSIS because that allows me to interact with the team assignments for users. And I could connect to CRM, tell it which teams I want users on, and push that into the data and deploy that very quickly. I've done that in several cases where I needed to either add teams or remove teams based on attributes of the user's user record, and I could push that out using that. But that's slightly different, but there's nothing in the toolbox. And I should say, like Tanguy says in this chat window, there's nothing in the toolbox so far. Definitely would, if you have a suggestion of things that you would like to see, tools that would be useful, the better you can explain, articulate what the need is and how you would imagine using it, and submit those as suggestions. I know Tanguy's always looking for ideas, and if you've run across something that's useful and might be useful to yours and many other organizations, articulate that, let him know about it, and you never know, might show up. It's worked for me anytime. So good. All right, that appears to be the last question, so we could start wrapping up here. Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thanks, Tanguy, for your help as well. We're really glad to see you join up. With that, we will conclude today's session. So thanks again, and have a great day. Very good. Thanks.